everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Purpose and Profit Sisterhood podcast. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Jeanette Anderson, and today I'm here with one of the few good men that we let come on this show because, yes, it's about women for women and a few good men who support them in really expanding who they're being in the world. And Geoffrey Kent is someone that I met online from networking somewhere and is just a brilliant mind and a really good-hearted person, and so I wanted you to meet him so that he could share his wisdom with you. So welcome, Geoffrey.
Thank you.
So I'll tell you the inside scoop and the down low on Geoffrey, and then we'll find out the real behind the scenes important stuff. And then we're going to launch into a topic about how to launch and grow your business beyond $1 million per year. So big topic, lots of interesting conversation to have about that. But first I'll tell you, Geoffrey Kent, founder and CEO of Think Big with Geoffrey Kent, is a serial entrepreneur, having launched 20 plus entrepreneurial ventures over the last 5 decades. He took his last tech venture, Cognis IT, from launch to successful exit in 6 years a decade ago. In addition to an MBA in entrepreneurial management from the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania, he's been an executive at Xerox Corporation, AT&T, and Deloitte Consulting, and taught entrepreneurship at Lincoln University. Has judged Drexel University's annual business plan competition and has served on multiple corporate boards of directorship. And we were just talking about his new alignable entrepreneur university that he's launching, that is him educating people on alignable. So you can also find him there. So clearly the man's been around a bit and knows his poop. And so we're going to get right into that. So Geoffrey, tell us a little bit more about you. What's something that people would never guess by looking at you?
Okay, well, they might be able to tell this by looking at me. I doubt it. So I'm a military brat. My father started his career in the Army right out of high school during World War II, then went to college and was in ROTC while he was in college, and then entered the Air Force upon graduating from college and basically spent his entire career in the Air Force. So I'm a military brat who has lived on 4 continents and 10 of the 50 US states.
Wow, so there you go. That's awesome. So you also got around kind of like me. Yeah. We're both very mobile people. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your why. Why does it matter to you so much to support entrepreneurs? We were just talking about that before we got on here, but what's your why?
Yeah, so I please don't ask me why I became an entrepreneur, because I'm still trying to figure that out. So, but it kind of goes back to I remember having a conversation with a friend who happens to be a business coach. So he wasn't my business coach. We were just having lunch one day at a business club, and he asked me this, what I thought was an incredibly morbid question at the time. So he's like, "When you die, Jeff, what do you want your legacy to be?" And so, thinking, trying to think seriously about how I answer this question, because he was a good friend, my brain raced to I have 2 daughters. So, they're 21 and 25 now, but I had this conversation with them over a decade ago. They were very young at the time. So I was thinking about my daughters and thinking about the world, and then particularly the world I was going to leave behind for them. Mm-hmm. And started to think of, I'd like to improve the world. I'd like to, have them enter a world that was better than the world I entered. Not that the world was bad, but I just want to, if there's anything that in my power that I can do to improve the world, it would be a better world for them. And I started thinking about the way I kind of framed this in my mind was, what could I potentially solve with my God-given entrepreneurial talents? And so I started to look at, what are things that bother me that might impact my daughters? And my mind immediately came to poverty. And, so, when I thought about and started reading about global poverty, I said, well, poverty really it's an issue that is exacerbated by lack of access to opportunity. Entrepreneurship can provide opportunity. Maybe entrepreneurship can solve global poverty. And, again, just the more research and reading I did about this, I actually came up with, in my mind, a solution to solve global poverty through entrepreneurship. And it was, so what I would be able to provide was the training to entrepreneurs on how to launch, exponentially scale responsibly, and get to the exit they desired, when and how they wanted to, so that they could create, meaningful paying jobs in their community that could help eradicate global poverty. Because when you look at the numbers, something like, I think it's 7.1% of the 8 billion people on Earth, or somewhere around 568 million people live below the poverty level globally. And so, just started to think of, okay, well, what if we could identify 5 to 6 million entrepreneurs globally that come from communities that are disproportionately impacted by poverty, and what if we could provide them with the training to scale to 10 million in annual sales, so that they could hire 100 people each, and whether it's 5 or 6 million, let's say 6 million, times 100 jobs, you've created 600 million jobs globally. Well, if there are 568 million people living under poverty, you've actually solved poverty, plus create an additional 32 million jobs,
Right.
so I was like, okay, wow, that it sounds simple. I'm sure it's going to be incredibly difficult to do, but why not create a big, hairy, audacious goal that,
Exactly.
I could try to solve. And so that's what drives what I do, so for me,
Awesome.
it's, how do I give back to the entrepreneurial community through my knowledge, educating them on how to responsibly scale exponential business growth to get to an exit, and as I said, hopefully create tens to hundreds of jobs, paying meaningful wages in the communities they come from.
I love that. And I'm a big fan of BHAGs, of big, hairy,
Yeah,
audacious goals. And I think that it's really, really important and valuable that we do give back to communities, especially those, if you come from an area or a community that has disadvantage or some kind of ism that they're dealing with. It's
right.
part of why I'm so passionate about dealing with maturepreneur now and really supporting that, because ageism is a huge block. When you add that to sexism, it's even worse for older women to
Yeah, yeah,
be entrepreneurial, and yet millions and millions of them are either not ready to retire, they're not done,
yeah,
or they can't retire because they're economically not able, and they are in
right.
that poverty situation. There are millions and millions and millions of seniors that are destitute,
Yeah,
and so they have to come into entrepreneurialism just to survive. And of course, there's all those who want to contribute because they have so much more wisdom and expertise and value to add. So I am down with you on that whole mission of, let's just get rid of global poverty while we're at it by
yeah,
supporting entrepreneurs and supporting those who support entrepreneurs.
right.
So let's talk about how do we launch and grow a business? Because I know there's a lot of points you want to cover. So I'm just going to let you kind of run with each one. What are some of the biggest keys to being able to grow a business beyond $1 million? Because there's lots of entrepreneurs that
Mhm.
replace their job, maybe, in
Right.
terms of economic income, but they don't grow a business. So what's the difference between those two for you?
Yeah, so it kind of starts with, and before I launch into this, if you study successful entrepreneurs, there is a blueprint to success in entrepreneurship. And what I found is that successful entrepreneurs tend to do the same 6 things, which is what I teach. So it really starts with, and when I consult to entrepreneurs, particularly ones who are struggling, right? They've already launched, but they're struggling. One of the first questions I want to ask them is, what you asked me, what's your why? Why did you launch this particular business? So whatever happened, you got to a point where you decided, okay, I'm going to pursue entrepreneurship for whatever reason. So when you get to that point, more than likely you could launch any kind of business. There are millions of types of businesses, so you could launch anything. Why this particular type of business? And so what I'm trying to uncover is, what are you actually passionate about, and does this business allow you to work in your passion 24/7, 365? Because a lot of times solving why entrepreneurs are struggling is as easy as discovering that they don't love what they do.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, and you give them the hard advice of, you know, you would actually be better off shutting this business down and starting over again than trying to make this work when you don't love what you're doing. You
Mhm.
know, you've got to love what you do. So, you know, I enjoy meeting people who haven't launched yet, because then you can actually take them through this process of, okay, let's take a personality test. Let's and take a couple so that, you know, the results are consistent. And let's find out what you actually love to do. What are you good at, and what do you actually love to do? And let's figure out a business we can build around that, you
Yes.
know, because if you love what you do, you know, or, you know, if you do what you love, you're going to love what you do. The love that you have for what you do is going to permeate everything you do. The love you have that permeates everything you do is going to make you incredibly attractive to everyone around you, right? So it's going to be so much easier to get customers, to get strategic alliance partners, to get people to work with you, you
Mhm.
know, to get people to advise you if they see that you're passionate about what it is you do, right? So that's really where it starts.
Okay, love that. That's your very first step. And as you said, it's part of my why process. One of the things that I think is really critical, and I work with every one of my clients, is the finding your sweet spot in that Venn diagram of best at. So
Mhm, mhm.
love
Yeah,
and right, the
yeah,
intersection of, you can be the best at basket weaving, you can really love it, but if there's no demand in the marketplace, it's
yeah,
not going to
yeah.
be a very viable business.
Right,
There can be tons of demand and you don't love it, it just feels like a should. You
right,
aren't going to get out of bed in the morning to do that work. You're just going to resist and it won't work. So I think that's a brilliant starting point. And
right.
then how do they focus on finding the right market and the problems that they can solve? Because one of the things you said that I loved was, what could I, your motivation and your
Yeah,
question for yourself, which I thought was brilliant, is what could I solve with my talents?
yeah,
That's a good question. So how do people focus on that?
yeah. So focus is the key word, you know. Um, so as an entrepreneur, you fall into this trap. It's like, okay, I started my new business. I don't have any money. I don't have any customers, you know, but I still have bills to pay. So I'm desperate, and I need revenue. And so what do? I try to appeal to everyone, do everything, you know, that I can, appeal to everyone possible, because in my mind, any dollar is a good dollar. Every client's a good client. No, they're not, you know. So what you have to do is you have to laser focus on finding a niche target market that you feel you can dominate, become the dominant supplier of your products or services to. And at the end of the day, you know, once you identify who that market might be, um, you've got to talk to potential customers in that niche target market to find out what problems do they have, because at the end of the day, you have to, through your products and services, solve a problem that you know is an intractable problem that they are having difficulty solving themselves. And so your products and services have to provide a solution to that, you know, a pain point. And then you actually have something, right? So, but again, it's, you know, I tell entrepreneurs all the time, you don't need 1,000 clients. Having 1,000 clients is great, but you're not going to get them right away. Focus on getting one client,
Mhm.
because everything that you need to scale successfully, you can learn from one client. Once you get that one client, sit down with them and ask them, why did you give me a contract? You know, how are you using my products and services? How are my products and services impacting your business? And, oh, can you quantify that for me? You know, why do you keep coming back to me, you know, and buying more? So all of these types of, you know, deep dive questions that you can ask an existing customer can give you all of what you need in terms of ammunition to be able to get the next and the next and the next customer.
Mhm.
Because, you know, if you're serving a particular niche target market, and again, what you want to do is, and I've actually got, you know, very simple 3 yes or no questions that can help someone along this process. So I always, you know, when I'm talking to a new entrepreneur, it's like, okay, you know, does your product or service exist anywhere in the world today? Yes or no?
Mhm.
And I always tell them the answer is always yes. Don't tell me that you've come up with something no one else, there are 8 billion people on earth. Don't tell me you've come up with something no one else on earth and with the 8 billion people have never thought of. The probability you've come up with some unique idea is zero.
Yeah.
With 8 billion people on earth today. And I'll give them the example of the invention of the telephone. We credit Alexander Graham Bell with having invented the telephone. He did not.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the day he submitted the patent for the telephone, his was the second patent for the telephone submitted to the patent office that day. I won't get into the story of how he ended up getting the patent, but the point is, not only did he not submit the first patent for that device that day, but there's documented history of telephone-like devices that were being invented 200 years before Alexander Graham Bell submitted his patent. So and there weren't anywhere near 8 billion people on earth in late 1800s.
Yeah.
And even then, to be able to tell someone, hey, if you stand here and I stand on the other side of town, we're both going to be able to speak to each other through a box. We would have been burnt at the stake as witches, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, that something that revolutionary isn't being created today, right? So don't tell me, you have no competition. Everyone has competition, and if you can't identify who your competition is, you're either too lazy to do the research, or you've done the research and now you're lying to me and telling me the research you found of who your competition is. You for whatever reason, you think I'm going to give you money or whatever, because it in your mind, you've tried to convince me you have no competition.
Right.
So yeah.
So that's question, yes or no, question number one. What's number two?
Yeah. So then the next one, if your product or service exists somewhere in the world, then I want to know, is every potential consumer of your product or service being serviced by at least one of your competitors anywhere in the world? Yes or no? And so you might say, hey, no, I actually know a group of people that no one's servicing with this particular product or service. And my response is then that's your that's your niche target market. That's your value proposition. Service that group that either is not being served or is being underserved, right? Focus on them initially. You can expand once you dominate that particular niche. But what you want to do is get to a point where you gain name recognition as hey, whatever your products or services are. I realize no one's servicing anyone who has freckles, right? With that particular okay, well, service people with freckles. Now you're going to become known as the freckled, whatever it is your product or service is, person. And now when you go out to expand outside of that initial target market, everyone will have heard of you. There's, oh, Jeff, oh yeah, he's the freckled, whatever product person. And so now they're going to actually sit down and listen to you, which they wouldn't do normally because we don't trust salespeople, right? And then the last question, assuming that you actually answered that, yes, everyone's being served, then the last question is everyone that's being served happy with the service they're getting? And if the answer is, no, then find a way to service those people that aren't happy, either by, getting your product or service to them faster than everyone else, competing based on price. It could be high or low, or providing such a robust purchasing experience for that customer that no one else is giving them. Right. Those are really the only three ways to differentiate when, your service exists in the marketplace. But if you said, hey, my product or service exists, everyone's being served, and everyone's happy, I would tell them, okay, well, forget this idea. Let's move on to the next idea, because you can't differentiate.
Exactly. Well, and speaking of getting a competitive advantage, because part of what you're talking about with differentiation is how do we stand out? You advocate forming strategic alliances to get an advantage over your competitors.
Right.
When do you think that's a very good idea for people to do? Because is that something we do when we start out, or not until we've grown a while?
No, I would recommend doing it on day one. Right. So, case in point, my last venture, I sold it 10 years ago, was a private cloud computing business. And my first year, well, so I bought servers from Dell Computer and put them into data centers to provide cloud services to my customers. So because I had a relationship with Dell Computer, because I bought equipment from them, I decided, hey, I want to partner with Dell. So I reached out to Dell and started talking to them about forming a strategic alliance partnership and starting to co-market and co-bid on opportunities. And ultimately, I mean, it took me a while, but they agreed to do this. And we were actually in our first year able to land an 8-figure, five-year deal to service the school district of Philadelphia using Dell as Dell was the prime, we were the sub.
Mm,
And but we would not have won that opportunity were we not partnered with Dell.
right.
And so we did that in our first year, so again, I go back to find unconventional strategic alliance partners, much bigger companies than you, who don't view you as a competitor, right? You can be in the same industry, but I mean, Dell didn't view us as a competitor. Dell was is still a multi-billion-dollar business. Our first year we did 150,000 in annual revenue. Dell would have could sneeze on us and put us out of business. So we were not a threat to them. So but I found a way to partner with them and get them into an opportunity that by partnering with us, actually it made them more appealing, right?
Well, so there's a good point there, because I think a lot of people would think, well, but I can't partner. I'm little, I'm a one-person shop, or there's only 4 of us or whatever. How can we partner or form strategic alliances with bigger partners or bigger companies? They won't want to have anything to do with us. So how do you define a strategic alliance, and how would you tell them to think about that if they're little?
Yeah. So the first thing you've got to do is change your mental mindset about large companies and why they would want to partner with you. Actually, it makes perfect sense for large companies to partner with small businesses, because if you've worked in large companies, you realize that there's tons of bureaucracy, so it's difficult to get anything done because of the bureaucracy, right? So, and if you want to discover this, find someone who works for a large company who was there when it launched, when they launched, because at one point they were a small business too, right? And ask them one simple question: when did you have the most fun working in this company?
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, they will tell you when we first launched.
Yeah.
When we had no revenue, we were all, we were all, operating this business out of the garage, the loft, wherever it was, the basement, it was 3, 4
Yeah.
of us, however, but we hung out together, we made decisions together, we developed products and services together, we ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner together, we knew everyone's spouses, everyone's kids, we attended everyone's little league games together, all this that's when it was fun.
Yeah.
But then we were successful, the business grew, we added employees, we got to a point where this got so big that now we went from being able to put your hands in everything to being limited to doing one thing in a job. And if you understand entrepreneurs, you understand that entrepreneurs don't like being pigeonholed and doing one thing.
Right.
That will drive an entrepreneur
No,
crazy.
one hat is not a happy thing. Well,
Yeah,
okay, so just before we move on, because I want to make sure that we try and get to all 6 if we can. But
sure.
in terms of strategic alliances, what are just a couple of examples of things that entrepreneurs might want to think about? Because you being an IT cloud support, working with a hardware vendor makes a lot of sense. But what if there's a service provider? Who could they align with?
Yeah. So what you want to do, and this comes from a concept called the value net. So there is a book that was written by a Harvard and a Yale professor called Co-opetition. And in it, they describe a concept called the value net. And what that basically says is that when you're forming strategic alliances, you want to form strategic alliances in 4 unique quadrants. You want to look at companies that have products and services that complement yours. So you're looking for complementers. You want to look at your supplier base and form partnerships with your suppliers. You want to look at your customer base and see if you can form alliances with customers. And then last but not least, you actually still want to look at competitors and see. And again, when you, like I mentioned with Dell and me being a startup, if a competitor is so large, they don't view you as competition. That's actually the great time to reach out to them, because again, they're mired down with bureaucracy. It's hard for them to do anything, but they understand that, they remember what it was like being you. And so they know that, okay, well, as a small business, you don't deal with bureaucracy. If you want to do something, you just do it.
Yeah.
And you'll ask for forgiveness if you make a mistake after the fact, but you don't have to ask for permission. So it works out perfectly in that, because of their size and their marketing budget, they see opportunities all the time. They identify opportunities, but it's hard for them to get to them, those opportunities. But if they have a small business partner who they can feed pre-qualified leads to, and you can go in and execute, you just find a way to split profits. Right. So it's a perfect relationship.
Yeah. Think about it from their perspective. What do they need in terms of clients, and how can you potentially collaborate to create that mutual win or some kind of win-win together? This is a whole art and science in and of itself in terms of alliances. But let's talk also about building relationships with customers to turn them into long-term brand evangelists, because I know that that's kind of the holy grail that a lot of people want, but aren't necessarily good at. So what are some of the key steps to be able to do that?
Yeah. So in essence, what you're trying to accomplish is you're taking a customer from customer to evangelist. And when they become an evangelist, what they do is they buy everything you sell for the duration of your business. And they do one other thing. They refer you to all of their peers, because if you understand what the selling process, we don't trust salespeople. We don't understand what their motivation is for selling to us in the first place. So the easier thing to do is just build a wall. And as soon as you hear someone's a salesperson, put the wall up and ignore them, right? You don't do that when you're being sold to by a peer. You'll listen to a peer. So it's actually, I tell people, don't hire a sales force. Provide world-class customer service and let your customers sell for you, And so, and they'll do that when they become evangelists. So the way to think about this is, I'll tell someone, think of a company, a brand, a business that you've been slavishly loyal to for a long period of time. Let's say for a decade. Could be a car manufacturing company. It could be a computer brand. It could be a restaurant locally, whatever it is. Someone that you've been loyal to for a long period of time. Now, once you identify who that is, I want you to list all the reasons why you're so loyal to that particular organization. What is it they do for you that keeps you coming back? And once you've gotten that list, here's the simple part. Take everything that you've put down and infuse it into your business and start doing that for your customers. And guess what? Your customers will be as loyal to your business as you are to that organization.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, is because we are enthusiastic about some businesses, and you can do the reverse as well. Where are businesses that you would never go back to or would never use again, and why? What did they do to lose your loyalty, and how do you not do that and ensure that you do the opposite of that in your business?
Right.
So there's more to talk about, but I also want to make sure that people can find out more about how to access you. So the other two things that Geoffrey teaches about as part of those 6 pillars is how to access capital by understanding what motivates others to invest in your vision, and how to build a team capable of helping you scale and realize that vision, both of which are really big topics as part of the process of growing to $1 million plus. Because and this is the question I want us to wrap up with, is what is the biggest, I don't know, I'm going to say mindset, although I hate that word, but what is the biggest shift an entrepreneur needs to make to go from being someone who is a solopreneur to being someone who can be the person who creates $1 million business? Because those are not the same person. So what does it take for someone to get themselves to be the leader of a business $1 million and beyond?
So it kind of starts with the, when I talk to entrepreneurs, I tell them the process of running and scaling a business is the opposite of reading a book. When you read a book, you start from the beginning and work your way to the end. With a business, you start with the exit and work your way back to the beginning. So you have to know, what am I trying to build? So the goal of building an entrepreneurial business is not to create a job for yourself. It's to create an exit event somewhere in the future that allows you to extract sufficient capital from your success to create generational wealth for yourself and your family. Right. So once what that means in terms of dollars and cents is going to vary by person. Right. But you've got to figure out, what do I want to create when I create this event that allows me to take money off the table from my success? How much money do I need to do whatever it is I want to do post my venture? Right. And once you figure that out, and then you determine, okay, well, what kind of exit event would I want to trigger in order to be able to pull that money off the table? Do I want to take my company public? Do I want to sell my business? Do I want to sell to employees? Do I want to, bring a family member or a friend into the business and have them take over the business? Do I want to, recapitalize the business? There are a variety of ways to create an exit event. But once you know how much money I need, how big does my company have to get for whatever percentage of the company I own at the time of the exit event allows me to extract that amount of capital out of the business. What's the type of exit event I want to have happen? And then when is that going to happen in the future? How many years into the future? Now I can begin to reverse engineer growth from year to year to get to that exit, because if I know, 7 years from now, I want to get to 100 million and I'm at zero today, I can come up with a formula for what do I need in terms of revenue every year to get to 100 million in 7 years. And so now, once I have all of that, now I've created my blueprint. Now I want you to focus on 12 months at a time. So what does that blueprint say you need to do for the next year? Let's just focus on that. Forget about the rest of the plan. You'll get there. Let's just focus on the next 12 months. If the next 12 months says, okay, we need to generate $1 million in the first year. Okay, now let's figure out the plan to do that. Convert that into how many sales of your products and services based on whatever the price is you would need to make. And so now you can again begin to reverse engineer, by taking one sale, what's the process? Looking at leading metrics. What are the things that lead to a sale? What are the things I do that lead to a sale? Did I send out emails, which led to phone calls, which led to appointments, which led to presentations, which led to proposals, which led to a contract and ultimately a sale, whatever my process was. And if I can begin to quantify what that process of leading metrics is and start to monitor and measure that, and when I know that I have this blueprint in place of what I need to accomplish in year one in terms of monthly sales, and I can convert that into how many of each of these activities do I need to do on a daily basis. I can then monitor and measure that, and I can adjust that on a daily basis if what I do in day one doesn't lead to what I thought it was going to lead to in day two. I can make an adjustment, and I'll just continue doing that until I have this down to a fine science. And so you're going to get to a point where, basically you're going to be able to predict exactly what's going to happen in your process. Now you've got this formula that leads to you either doing one of two things. You're either always going to meet your goal or you're going to exceed it. You're never going to go under your goal.
Okay, I love that. And I love the notion of reverse engineering and starting with the exit event in mind. That's going to allow you to extract either generational wealth or whatever your success is by your definition. And it's interesting, Geoffrey, because I've been sitting with the question of how do I 10x my business and get to the 7-figure mark, it's the wrong question. What I realized from your conversation is, rather than how do I grow at 10x, it's once it's grown 10x, then let's reverse engineer it. And it's interesting because I almost always do that with my clients, but I forgot to do that with myself in this situation. So thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So tell us about your checklist that people can go and get. What will that do for them? It's the Think Big checklist to scale exponential growth.
Yeah, so it's a 2-page document that basically, so if someone goes to my website, www.thinkbigwithgeoffreykent.com, they'll a pop-up comes up within a couple seconds, and if you just give me your name, email address, and phone number, you'll get an email with a link to download the checklist for free. The checklist, as I said, is basically a 2-page summary of all that we've talked about, so far.
Yeah.
It just tells you the 6 things that, when you look at successful entrepreneurs and what they attribute their success to, again, if you read their books, you actually have conversations with these successful entrepreneurs, you'll realize that, it's like you're having the same conversation, reading the same book over and over and over again. They say they do the same things. They figure out what they're passionate about, build businesses around their passion. They laser focus on serving an unserved or underserved niche target market they can dominate, before they scale. They form unconventional strategic alliances with, complementers, competitors, suppliers, and customers. They infuse world-class customer service into what they do, so that they can transform their customers into evangelists who buy everything they sell for the duration of the life of their business and refer them to all their peers. They monitor and measure the leading metrics, not just the lagging metrics, so that they have a way to ensuring that they consistently meet or exceed their sales goals. And then last but not least, they surround themselves with an A team of co-founders, executive leaders, managers, staff, advisors, and mentors, and boards of directors, to give themselves the highest probability of executing on their vision, whatever that vision is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
so the document just basically outlines what all of these things are.
All right, everybody, you've heard those 6 steps, and I know we went through it quickly, and some of them are really big, and you're going to go, but yeah, how do I do that? One of the things, so you can go get that checklist, and you can go to Geoffrey's website, thinkbigwithgeoffreykent.com. Yep, it's up there on his screen behind him, how you spell his name.
Yeah.
And he also has the course that's showing there. That is I did put the link in for it. I normally don't actually put paid offers into the links or our show notes or whatever, but because I think it's such a good deal, it's $275 for the course for the whole year. I fully support people in getting this entrepreneurial foundation, but it's more than a foundation. It's something that at every stage we need to be attending to these 6 things and up-leveling them at every stage, because how we do strategic alliances in the beginning is different than how we do it in year 10 or, et cetera. And how team evolves, it changes over the years, et cetera. So it's something that these 6 fundamentals need to be addressed on an ongoing basis. So I love that you're supporting entrepreneurs in taking care of the critical key components, so they can be successful, so that they can change our world by not only providing their gifts, but also ending poverty in the world. I think that's a brilliant goal to tie to that. And it is very practical. That is how we will end poverty, is by getting people employed, working, and doing things mostly with small businesses. Large businesses don't tend to support and serve the disadvantaged populations. So I think that's a brilliant direction to go in. Thank you so much for being here, Geoffrey. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Is it to go to your website?
Yeah. The easiest way to get in touch with me is to go to the website. There is an about page on the website, which will have all of my contact information, email address, all of that good stuff. So yeah, if they just go to www.thinkbigwithgeoffreykent.com, Geoffrey is spelled like the Toys R Us giraffe with the old English with the Geoffrey. But yeah, if they do that, that's the easiest way to connect with me. I'm also on, virtually every social media platform you could think of.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I love all of the tidbits that you've shared. And folks, if nothing else, if you took nothing else from this, start with the end in mind. The exit strategy in mind is a brilliant first thing to go and do if you haven't done that. If you haven't articulated it, go do that. And then apply this other criteria to the reverse engineering process. How do I put these other things in place? And do reach out to Geoffrey, do consume his information. It's brilliant, it's very helpful. He's got a true heart of service. He really does want entrepreneurs of all ages and stages to be successful. So that's one of the reasons why I love having you on here, because like me, you just really want people to win at entrepreneurialism, because that serves everybody. So what's one last piece of advice you'd like to leave everyone with? What's one brief little nugget for us?
Wow. We've covered so much. I just, when I talk to entrepreneurs, and again, I guess this is the thinking big part of what I do. You can't achieve anything unless you conceive it first, so, I tell entrepreneurs, think bigger than you've ever thought before in terms of what, just don't limit yourself as to what you can achieve. Anything is achievable. No business has to fail. Every entrepreneur can succeed. It's about, surrounding yourself with the people who can help you succeed. So again, I kind of go back to Jim Rohn has a quote that talks about, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so how I translate that for entrepreneurs is like, if you want to succeed as an entrepreneur, find 5 or more successful entrepreneurs to surround yourself with, spend all your time with them, ask them constant questions, do what they do, take note of what they do everything they do, and you'll have the same level of success that they've had. So.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And speaking of surrounding yourself with people who support you and love you, get you, and encourage you, please do join the Purpose and Profit Sisterhood Facebook group community. We are there to lift other women up, to provide resources and information, brilliant interviews like this on an ongoing basis, so that you can be the difference that only you can be in the world. So please do go and join us at the Purpose and Profit Sisterhood Facebook group. Thanks so much for being here, Geoffrey. Have a bodacious week, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.